Good afternoon. Welcome to Government Contracting Academy. Today's going to be awesome. I would like to introduce my government contracting mentor, the guy that kind of guided me into a lot of my current successes, Randall Wimmer. Randy, could you introduce yourself?
Yeah, okay. I'm still the same person that I've been for the last few weeks. Um, I started out in government contracting, I would say way back in 2002, 2000 actually. Um, so launched my first company in 2003. It failed miserably. And made a lot of mistakes. But I relaunched it again in 2007 and I got it off the ground. I had a subcontract or two actually. And but I didn't know really how to scale it or grow it or win prime contracts, and went out of business again. And then I relaunched Analytic Strategies, my first company, in 2010, and I started having success. And started winning a couple of contracts here and there. And in 2013, I figured it out, and I figured out how to really be successful in this industry. And I took, a company that had only made just, a few peanuts here and there for the existing, 10 plus years. And I ended up winning nearly $400 million in prime contracts in the next 3.5 years before I sold it in 2016. So I figured it out. And then I went on to be part, to be owner, to be either a co-owner or full owner of other, contracting companies that ultimately led to successful acquisitions. So I've sold three or four, depending on how you want to look at it. One of those, I sold one of the companies to myself. So it's kind of weird when you do that, but I did that. So I've had three or four, successful exits in the government contracting industry, and along the way, like I said, I have stepped on a gazillion landmines, and I have, learned a ton of hard-earned lessons that I try to share with people through Government Contracting Academy, which I launched in 2020. So I was kind of hoping, Jonathan, not just to get on a monologue here, but I was kind of hoping that we could talk today about one of the most common questions that I'm always asked, and that is, Randy, what were the top mistakes that small businesses make? So, if you're okay with that, Jonathan, that's kind of where I'd like to go today.
Oh, perfect. Before we dive into it, the audiobook that I'm listening to this morning, it's a higher level scientist, and he spoke to repeatability being the most significant variable in in science. Like if you achieve the repeatability, that's a confirmation. What I heard you describe in your introduction was repeatability through the sale of multiple companies, right? Like, yeah.
Yeah. And the deal is okay. See, that's the I that wow, that's a great book. I'm going to read that. What was it called?
Oh my gosh, yeah,
Yeah,
I
no, no.
can't. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, maybe we can remember it and drop it in the chat, because that book also um, kind of reminds me of one of the biggest frustrations that a lot of the folks that I work with, they have. And this is, I'm going to kind of paraphrase this exchange, but this is basically the exchange I get from them. Randy, show me where you caught your fish so I can catch it. And and I have to explain to these people, like saying, like, it's not going to work. It doesn't work. I can't take you to the same fishing hole that I fished at. I can't bait your hook with the same bait that I used. I can't cast your line in the same exact spot where I caught my fish. And the reason why is because I already caught that fish. That fish is hanging on the wall. If there was a to-do list, a checklist, a flow chart that would lead every single person to business success, wouldn't that be the most read book in the world? Now I'm thinking that would even be more read than the Bible, or the Quran, or any other, of the world's most popular, books or literature. And the reason why that is who wouldn't want to read a book that would guarantee them the pathway to success, to riches? It would be like it would be on everybody's bookshelf. And wouldn't that pathway to that fishing hole just be like a 12-lane highway, because everybody would be going to it? So it doesn't exist. And that's what business plans, these business plan templates and things that you find on the internet, that's what they try to sell. They're selling like saying, hey, you follow our templated business plan, it's going to result in that hockey stick, growth curve and riches. It doesn't exist. So the deal is um, the first mistake. Okay, so this is a good segue into some of these mistakes. Is you do not use a business plan. You do not, because a business plan does a couple different things right off the bat. A business plan is a one-shot deal. Basically, you come up with the plan and you execute it. And even if it's not good, or even if you realize like, oh man, this is not really exactly right, you're kind of committed to that strategy and plan because it's a one-shot deal. That is your plan. And, so what you do is you end up doing what I say, what I call putting a lipstick on the pig. It's a pig, but you try to dress it up and clean it up and make it look pretty. But the deal is it's still a pig. What you really need is you need a framework. You need that framework, that business model type of iterative approach is what you really need. One is you're not wasting a ton of time creating what I call shelfware. It's going to be 150-page documents. It's going to sit on your bookshelf and it's not going to do any good, but collect dust. The second thing is it automatically assumes that it's not perfect. So it takes the stigma of failure away from it because it's an iterative approach. You go through the cycle once and you can say, okay, what did I learn from that? Because we're going to redo it and we're going to refine it this next time. And then you finish it the second time. You say, okay, that was good. We're getting there, but it's still not right. Now let's take what we've learned in our last two iterations and apply it to the third iteration. And then you keep on doing that over and over and over and over and over. And you do that not just to launch a company, not just to be successful, but to continue to be successful. Whatever took you to being successful at this level is not going to be the same stuff that's going to take you to the next level. Your business changed. I used to tell people that my job in my first year being a business owner was completely different than my second year, my third year, my fourth year. My first year was focusing on market penetration. My second year was focusing on writing proposals, and my third year was doing this. Ultimately, I became the infrastructure guy. You know what I mean? Like, I need to have some infrastructure to make sure that everybody in the company knows what they're doing and that they can do it effectively. So, it had nothing to do with proposals. It had nothing to do with you do it all. But what I'm trying to say is that my job changed so much, Jonathan, that you can't do the same thing over and over and over and expect to have success. You've got to learn. Even if it was previously successful, it's not going to continue to be successful, guaranteed. So
that might be a point where we're going to get to the mistakes, but that right there and the Googleability of what to do next is challenging because, as you just described, it's different per year. So like if you Google, hey, I got this problem, and then you search for a solution, you Google for a solution. Yeah. Are you getting a response from a CEO that has first year experience or 10-year experience? Because they might create a video to address each problems, but the CEO or the person that's presenting, you know what I mean? Because it's adaptability.
I totally agree. Hey, Jonathan, I've related this way. We're both parents. I bet you parented your youngest child differently than you parented your oldest child.
Yeah.
Why?
Yes, sir.
Because you learned a few things along the way. But what if what a disservice you'd be offering your youngest child if you didn't iterate and become a better parent? What a disservice to both you and your youngest if you didn't take those lessons learned to become a better parent. And that's the difference between having a business plan and using a business model, which is an iterative approach. Now, the one that I've had success with is what I call the DADDY framework. It's an acronym. It stands for dream, or desire. That's your goals. You got your analysis. You got your, you got your define your end state, what you need to be in order to be successful, develop a plan to get there, you execute it, and you continuously evaluate it. And that last E, the evaluate, is that iterative approach. You go back to the analysis phase, like, oh man, I got something wrong here. What did I get wrong? And then you reanalyze it with more insight, and you telescope down to what it is to fix, and then you improve it, and boom, next thing you know, You're defining, your desired end state. Again, you're developing a plan to get there, and then you're executing it, and you're continuously evaluating. So to me, that's probably one of the best things that you can do. That's the biggest mistake. Nobody knows how to start a small business, and it's not their fault. It's just not taught, and it's different for everybody. The deal is you've got to give yourself a to-do list that can only be created by you, because your situation is completely different than everybody else's. Your goals are completely different than everybody else's. The market space that you're pursuing is different than almost, than other people's. Everything is different about your personal situation. And the deal is you don't know what you don't know. You need a business model or framework to help surface what it is that you don't know. And then once you surface what it is that you don't know, then you got to learn it. And then, that becomes your action item list. And you convert something that just seems so big and intimidating, and you start chunking it down into action items that you can go pursue, and execute against and find the answers to, and then start, implementing that into whatever it is that you're doing. So to me, that's the most important thing that you can do as a small business owner. It's the most common mistake that everybody makes. They download a business plan from the internet, and it is 100% useless. They just waste their time. However, they feel really good about it. They say, "Hey, I've created all these templates. I've just populated all of them," but it's meaningless, and they never use it. I don't know anybody who's really effectively used a business plan. I just don't. And I've worked with tons of small business owners, so it's just not effective. You got to have that iterative framework.
The environment changes, right? Like that's
absolutely. Yeah, everything changes about it. You gotta, and you're the only human being in the world that can help. That can create that action item list. You're the only person, because everybody, like I said, everybody always comes to me and say, "Randy, show me where you caught your fish. Just tell me how to do it, and I'll do it." Now, I can give you a lot of insider tips, that's going to make your life a hell of a lot better. There's about an 8-year learning curve that I experienced in a very painful way that I can reduce down to about 8 weeks. But much of what it is that you have to do is got to come from inside your head, and you got to figure that out. Now, again, I kind of teach you this framework and how to use this framework to personalize your strategy to achieve your goals. And but no one size fits all, and that's what a lot of people think. They just need that one. I need that magical to-do list that somebody knows, and if I just do that to-do list, like, no, you have to do a to-do list. Yeah, that's the strategy that you should be pursuing, but you got to create what that to-do list is, and that's tough because you don't know what you don't know.
That's without going into it, that's what we were talking about earlier, right? Like, this is a mentor-mentee kind of situation, the sincerity of we're talking about it because it's real. It's not fluff. It's not a sales gimmick. Like, this is actually the best way to do it, or from your experience, this is what you prescribed to me, right?
Yeah, it really is. It's a learning curve. You gotta jump in with both feet, and that's the second biggest mistake that I have. I have people who dream about launching a small business, their entire life. And the deal is they never do it. They're procrastinators. There's a whole bunch of reasons why they never do it. And in my book, you can kind of see it over my head. It's called Good Enough to Launch Your Company. I kind of highlight what a lot of those reasons are. And there's different reasons. One, you got the procrastinators. They feel like, I just need to do one more thing. I need to learn one more thing. I need to get one more degree. I need to do this. I need to do that before I can do it. And then you have the other people who, they just don't believe that they can do it. They're like, well, I don't know. I'm not one of the beautiful people. Those are the kind of people like Elon Musk, or like, my dad didn't own an emerald mine, or I didn't go to Harvard, so I'll never be successful. You have all this self-doubt. You got to overcome this self-doubt. And then there's the group that maybe they're overly confident. They're saying like, hey, I'm pretty successful to this point in my life. I guess I want to continue what I'm doing, and I'll continue to be successful. And it gets back to whatever got you to that point is not necessarily going to take you to the next level. because there's different skill sets required for each one. So again, the biggest obstacle though, ultimately, is people are scared to take that first step. And the reason
That's
why
scary.
is
It is.
terrifying. So people want to do level of effort tasks like, oh, I'll complete this degree program, or I'll do this, or I'll do that, and they're scared to take that first step. They're unwilling to invest what I call emotional equity, where if you fail, it hurts. But if it's level of effort, like creating a website, I know that if I put enough effort into creating a website, I'm ultimately going to have a website. So there's nothing for me to feel bad about. There's no risk of me failing when all I have to do is just keep plugging along and I'll have a website. But there is a lot of risk of failure if you're doing things that matter. Reaching out to a potential partner and asking them if they're willing to bid with you on an effort. Reaching out to a potential partner and saying, hey, I'm a small business or a woman-owned small business or whatever type of business. What can I do to earn your trust, become a trusted, small business partner, to be one of your subcontractors? That takes that's investing emotional equity, where you're going to get rejected majority of time, because that is that's a challenge. You know what I mean? A lot of people, they hate the fear of rejection. They hate it. Rejection is part of success. Nobody counts your outs in business. Nobody counts how many times you step up to the plate and swing. You get as many strikes as you want. This is not baseball. You get to stand up at that plate and swing for as many times as you feel comfortable doing. And you just keep on swinging until you hit the ball. And that's the mindset you have to have. But you got to take that first step. You got to step up to the plate. And most people don't do that. And I want to say something that sounds like a little bit like maybe it's, I don't know if the term oxymoron is the correct term here, but you'll never be ready to launch a business. So now's the best time to do it. It's just as good as any other time, because you're never going to be ready to do it. So why not now? And there's a lot of truth in that, because, making one mistake that you make in the first week of you being in business, it'll be a heck of a lot more efficient than 3 years of trying to guess what that mistake would be and doing all of that preparation to potentially avoid it. You're over that one mistake in a week. You know what I mean? Guess what? Okay, you lost a week, by making the mistake, and you've learned from it, and you'll learn from it better than any other way that you could have learned from it. However, most people want to invest 3 years to potentially avoid that mistake. Jump right in there and make the mistake. You know what I mean? It's a week versus 3 years. And what you'll learn from it is a heck of a lot more than the 3 years of preparation to hopefully avoid it.
Would you, so I'm picturing that like a skin knee, your willingness to skin a knee. A lot of people will not ride a bike because of the risk of I picture like embarrassment, like the fear of making a mistake and everybody seeing you, and starting a business. I know for myself, and I bet you it's the same for you. Like people made fun of me, or, there's a natural resistance to doing something outside of the herd.
The deal is people are always scared to fall when they're learning how to ride a bike. And it's not because of the pain. It's because of the embarrassment. Now I think about what I just said. To use the example that you just said, has nothing to do with the pain. It has to do with the embarrassment. And you know what? It's like you're acting like a teenager. Teenagers have got this thing where they think the whole world is looking at them. The whole world is watching them. And if they do something the slightest little bit different, or they deviate from what the pack is doing, like, oh my gosh, the whole world's going to laugh. And as an adult, we all realize, like, nobody gives a damn. Nobody's watching you. Nobody really cares. Like you're wearing a different style of blue jeans than somebody else, or a different shirt. Like, nobody cares. Nobody notices. So the deal is once you become an adult business person, meaning you've kind of gone through that phase and you're on the other side looking back of it, you realize, like, nobody gives a damn. Make the phone call, get embarrassed. They expect you to do that. That guy won't even remember. That guy who just rejected you won't even remember who you are in 20 minutes. And that's going to keep you, his viewpoint, which doesn't even impact you at all, is going to keep you from achieving your dreams. It's like, no, that is the worst decision that you can make. If having somebody's view of you for less than 20 minutes impact what you're going to achieve in life. You can't do it. So that would be another major mistake that people have is that they're just so scared to invest emotional equity. They're so scared of failing because of the embarrassment. I can't tell you how many times I've got my nose bloodied in business, and I walk away with a bloody nose and a bruise to my ego. It's like those are all 100% recoverable. But if you do that 5 times a day, guess what's going to happen? At some point, you're going to have a success. And nobody counts your losses. They only count your wins in business. Now think about what I just said. I tell people I won about $2 billion in federal government contracts. And do I tell people how many I bid on and lost? No, because it's irrelevant. Or how about when my small businesses were awarded about $400 million in prime contracts? Do I tell people how many I bid on and lost? No, because the company that was acquiring my businesses, they didn't care how many I lost. They only cared about what I had, what I won. That's what they were paying me for my successes. I didn't have to give back any money because it took me 4 failures to get to that 5th success. I didn't have to give back any of that money for it. They only paid me for my successes. Successes are all that matters.
Which is a segue to our topic for today. 10 mistakes to avoid in federal contracting.
Yeah. Well, now we're down to 8.
Yeah. Sorry, the math. Nice. Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah. Now we're so let's think. Let's start with the very top. I got a list here. So this is in no order. All small businesses are perceived to be risky. Most people don't realize that. And and they are. They 100% are. And I'll give you a personal example about me. I have a story that after I won my very first prime contract, I screwed up invoicing so bad that it took me literally months, over a half a year in months, to kind of put a little bit of scale on to how long it actually took me to get my first dollar bill to be successfully paid to me, from the federal government. And I've been paying people, every 15 days, every payroll. And this was a sizable prime contract, and I was paying about $85,000 every 15 days. Now I had some cash reserves going into this thing, so I wasn't a complete and total idiot, but I didn't have enough to cover 7 months of payroll out of pocket. I needed some of that money coming in pretty soon, but like I said, I screwed up the invoicing. And talking about a lesson learned, boom, I can tell you where that landmine is, so you don't have to step on it yourself, because this one almost put me out of business before it really truly got started. So I tell people that that my worst day as a small business owner, I was out of money. I had passed the hat to friends and family. I needed money because I had no money to make payroll, and payroll was coming up, at noon. That's when they were going to take the money out of my account and, do payroll with it. And it is like, it's 11:30 and I'm in a fetal position behind my desk, whimpering because I'm waiting to be approved for financings, to get money. And it's 30 minutes before I'm out of business, basically. And it didn't come in for another 10 minutes. I got funding 20 minutes before I essentially was going to go out of business because I was going to miss a payroll. You miss a payroll, you're out of business. The fact, the government's going to fire you. If you can't pay your employees, you're out of there. So I was 20 minutes away. So when I say that small businesses are perceived to be risky, well, they're correctly perceived to be risky because small businesses, they lack the infrastructure of a Northrop Grumman. You know what I mean? Northrop Grumman, they can get money with a phone call. I couldn't. I was a small business. And when I tried to get financing from banks and things, they would look at my books and they said, "Well, Randy, you've been hemorrhaging $85,000 every 15 days, and you haven't made a single penny. Why would we ever give you money? You're hemorrhaging cash. You're not making money." And I'm thinking like, but it's coming. It's coming. As soon as I get my emails corrected, or not emails, but invoices corrected, money's going to come. So anyway, we are high risk. So that is the number one perception of all small business, that we are all high risk. And you got to do something to change that perception. Because even if you're IBM bidding on a prime contract, if they're required to have a small business subcontracting plan, that means that the most that IBM's ever going to do on their big contracts is 70%. 30% is going to be going to a small business, to small businesses that nobody's ever heard of. And that's where the pucker factor kicks in for the federal government and the source selection board. Like, oh my gosh, yeah, we love IBM. IBM is the most trusted company in the world, but what about the 30% that they're not doing on this contract that these small businesses that nobody's ever heard of are doing? So you've got to be able to overcome the perception of being a high risk company, and that's tough to do when you're a startup. Why? Because the easiest way to overcome the perception of being high risk is to have proof that you have delivered on similar contracts with respect to size and scope. And if you can't do that, then the only other way that I know of to overcome that perception of risk is through corporate credentials. They're like college degrees for your company. It's just like, nobody's going to hire a high school graduate to be an accountant or to be a consultant for a swanky, firm, right out of high school. Why? Because they're risky. There's nothing about that high school diploma that says that you are going to deliver as an accountant or as a business consultant for Deloitte or McKinsey or Ernst & Young or whoever. There's not a single thing that you can provide them that's going to mitigate that risk, because you have no past performances. It's not like you worked 10 years as a partner with Deloitte or McKinsey to prove that you can deliver. There's nothing that in your work experience that shows that. So what do? You go to college. You go get an accounting degree. You sit for a CPA. Now you're a certified CPA. So now you have two credentials, an accounting degree or a business degree and a CPA, and now you have people standing in line to hire you. Not because of your work experience, you still don't have any, but you have these corporate credentials, your personal credentials in this case, that mitigates those risks. And ISO certification are the only corporate credentials that I know that a startup can obtain. And the good news about that is that's when they're needed the most, for two reasons. One, it mitigates that risk that everybody perceives you to have. And then the second thing is it gives you corporate infrastructure in order to be able to deliver. So what does ISO certification really mean? It means that you have been audited by an accredited third party and found fully compliant with the globally accepted industry best practices for whatever that particular standard is. If it's ISO 9001, then that standard is quality management. If it's 27001, then it's information security management, the largest risk in the federal government contracting space right now. If it's 14001, then it's environmental management. Like, oh my gosh. And, we are all hypersensitive about, the environment right now, especially the federal government. So those are all great corporate credentials to have. And it gives you instant credibility that you are low risk. And not to continue my monologue, but that's a good segue into the next mistake that people have. They launch a small business and they operate it like a car wash. What do I mean by that? Well, I ask people this simple question, in Government Contracting Academy: what makes a company a company? And, I get a lot of great answers, like, hey, it's when you have a customer, it's when you have a service, or it's when you have, whatever, it's whenever you're making money, it's whatever it is. This is my definition of when you're a real company. You're a real company when you have your own way of doing business. And And they said, well, yeah, okay, Randy, but where's the money? I said, well, my local high school, their band, when they have a car wash, they're making money. They have customers, they have people who pay them to wash their car. But if you've ever gone to one of these car washes, two things are for sure that's going to happen. You're Three things. We'll say three things. One is you're going to feel good that you made a donation to the band. Two, you're going to leave with a lot of dirt on your car. And three, you're going to leave with a lot of soap on your car. Why? Because they don't have their own way of doing business. There is total chaos if you've ever drove your car into one of those things. And the reason why is because they have no way of doing business. So when you are starting out, you got to start acting like a real company. You can't just do things from the seat of your pants. You got to make data-driven decisions. In order to make data-driven decisions, you've got to collect information, about your company, about your performance. In order to be able to collect information, you've got to have documented processes and procedures. It's that repeatability, Jonathan. If you can't repeat the same way you're doing something the same way twice, you're not a real company. You're just a guy winging it.
You're speaking to brand too, right? Like this internal process is an internal brand, right? Like after a while, it's just how everybody associates your next most likely action.
Oh, absolutely. That's a good one. I never really thought of it as your brand, but that's exactly what it is. It's an identifiable way of doing things, whether it be internally or externally. And I really do think that is one of the most important things that you can do. And again, this is how ISO certification can help you do that. All of these are management systems. So, a big part of that is management. How do you manage your own company? How do you manage risks? Well, there's a formal risk management system as part of any ISO program. Well, how do you manage communication? Well, guess what? That's part of management. So there's formal management, communication systems that you'll be using. How do you onboard new employees? Oh, guess what? That's part of it too. You should have that same consistent way of doing it. And how do you change your processes? Well, guess what? There's a change management system associated with this. So all of this stuff, it's got to be repeatable processes, because that's the only way you're going to gain efficiencies. Because as a small business, as you start to grow, you as the business owner, you're going to fall in the same trap as I did without having this infrastructure in place. It's going to be you doing everything with a gaggle of people following you around that you don't have the time to train them how to do things to help you, because none of it's written down.
That's kind of the average what you're describing, right? Like if without correction, that happens naturally. Doesn't you agree? Like it takes a conscious effort to stop that, or
I would say, not to get into the physical world, but I think things tend to, over time, they tend towards chaos rather than order, without having any type of processes in place. And if you're not conscious about creating order in your company, it's going to naturally trend towards total chaos, and chaos is going to implode. And this is a leading contributor to the next major mistake that small businesses have. They do not appropriately focus on bidding. So somehow or another, these small business owners stay crazy busy doing every single thing but the one thing that can help their company grow. And that is bid. They and trust me, it's easy. As a small business, you are crazy busy. You are doing all kinds of stuff. You are hyper busy. But being busy doesn't help you grow. There's all kinds of great and wonderful things that you should be doing, that you can always be doing, above and beyond, just bidding. But in the small business world, if you are not growing, you are dying.
Yes, sir.
It's just that simple. So by not bidding, you are on your way out of business. So you've got to grow. And, nobody likes to do it, again, for a couple reasons. One is they have to invest emotional equity. Well, we're going to lose this thing. I tell people when, these people who say, oh, I got an 80% chance of winning, or my probability of win is 72%. It's like, oh, that's the big lie. First off, most bids are recompetes. That means they're ongoing services that there's an incumbent in place, and the incumbent has a 70% re-award rate. So that means if you're not the incumbent, your P-win, your probability of win is less than 30. The whole bid field is 30%, and you're just one bidder in that bid field. So your probability of success is always really low, which is fine because the numbers that you win are really big. It's like playing the lottery. Like, well, Randy, you've only got a 10% probability of win. Yeah, but I'm playing the lottery and it's $1 billion payoff. I'll take my 10% chances of winning that $1 billion every single day because the numbers are so large. Your probability of win can be really small because in many cases you only need to win one of those big contracts. So that's the first thing. People are scared of losing. Like, why am I going to bid on something that I have a 90% chance of losing? Why would I do that? 90% chance of losing, well, that means you got a 10% chance of winning, but nobody looks at it that way. Yeah. And if you win that $50 million bid, even though you only got a 10% chance of winning it, well, from the expected value standpoint, a bid has an expected value of $5 million. They don't look at the expected value of it. They're looking at it, hey, I got a 90% chance I'm going to walk away with nothing. Why would I ever do that? Well, if you got an expected value of a bid being worth $5 million, you do it every single day. You know what I mean? Because you're going to win one of those. Every 10th one that you're going to win is $50 million you're going to make. Let's say you're making a 20% profit margin. So 20% times 50 million, 2 times 5. That's what, $10 million. So you just padded your personal investment portfolio by $10 million by winning that. That's not a bad business model. But real quickly, so that's the first one, is that emotional equity. Nobody likes to lose. The second thing is that they're so inefficient. They're so inefficient in their processes that what should take, I'll make up a number. What should take a man week to do, now it takes 4 man weeks to do because of their inefficiencies, because they didn't make the investment to create processes and procedures and templates and things like that. Now they're recreating the wheel every single time. You have different people doing it different ways. None of it integrates. And the next thing you know, you just quadrupled the resources necessary to do something, and you have a lower probability of success because you did it poorly.
Well, see if I can remember it. You just spoke. I'm not sure if this is on the list of top 10 mistakes that people make in federal contracting, but if it's not, it's a close one. Making it too big. I'm not. So you were speaking to the 90% fail rate and not doing it. The fear of I'm picturing it like public speaking kind of fear, like, oh my gosh, 90% chance. That default assumption that it should be easier. Well, maybe it's not, or maybe that's not the right mindset to find it's counterintuitive to the path of least resistance. And it's kind of a lack of knowledge, because you as an expert, as a person that's done this a ton of times, realizes that 10% actually is the path of least resistance. It's counterintuitive, right?
Totally. So this is a good segue into the next major, risk that small businesses make. They don't understand that this is a numbers game.
Oh, nice.
The federal government contracting industry is a numbers game. You got to put the numbers in. And this is where most people are off by zeros. They are literally off by orders of magnitude. I've had clients that come up to me and say, hey, Randy, your process, it seemed to make sense, but it's just not working. And I said, what do you mean? I said, well, I don't have a single subcontract. I don't have a single bid, teaming agreement, and I've been doing this for the last 4 months. And I said, okay, well, 4 months isn't all that long. If you think about it, we're on the pathway to create generational wealth, and saying you haven't achieved it in 4 months, well, that's kind of ambitious to think it's going to happen within 4 months, but go ahead, tell me more about your challenges. So I've reached out to probably 10 people and I don't have a single teaming agreement. I think 10, 10, 10 companies. I said, no, you're off by orders of magnitude. You come back to me and tell me you're having challenges after you reached out to 10,000 business development executives looking for, a partnering opportunity. 10,000, not 10, but 10,000. And, that's what everybody gets wrong. They don't understand what the expectations are. And I've stepped on this landmine myself. I remember, I came this close, and the only reason why I didn't is because I couldn't. I had a family situation that kind of really drove me. Like I didn't, failure was not an option kind of situation. But so I couldn't fail, but I wanted to quit. I no longer wanted to do small business stuff. I no longer wanted to be an entrepreneur, but like I said, I had to. And the reason why is because I had started bidding on these efforts, and I was losing all of them. And I was like, oh my gosh, when nobody really knows how much effort it goes into putting into one of these things, both actual physical effort and emotional effort. Because again, you lose one of these things.
Yeah,
I'm saying you got to invest emotional equity. That means like sometimes you lose it, and it takes a big chunk out of your insides, about of how you feel, and it's just a gut punch when you lose. I'm not going to sugarcoat that. It is a gut punch to lose because you think about all that time and effort and what could have been, and now it's gone. It didn't happen. This could have been the one that could have created generational wealth for my family, and it didn't happen. That is a letdown. So, what I did is I kept on going through, and I losing and losing and losing and losing, and then all of a sudden my one and only subcontract that I had ended, and now I had no money coming in, and I thought like, oh my gosh, what do I do? Do I go out and get a real job? Now, and do I give up on my entrepreneurial dreams? And like I said, I kind of is in a no fail option situation. So now I had to succeed, and my back was up against the wall. I had no money coming in, and I only had so long that I could do that without without really financially breaking our family and not being able to provide for them. So then I started bidding, and where I was putting in maybe 10% effort, in the previous ones, I was putting 110% effort in this one. I was like literally an order of magnitude more effort on these bids, and I started to win. And then I realized that it wasn't the industry, because I was blaming the industry. I think like this is the most crooked industry in the world. It's a who do you know industry. It's like they're only going to give awards to their friends, and I had this really sinister, bitter mindset. And then I realized, Randy, you were putting minor league efforts into trying to make the major leagues, and it was never going to happen. But I was blaming it on every single thing but me, and I wasn't putting the numbers in. I wasn't putting in the quality, I wasn't putting in the hours, and I wasn't putting in the number of bids that I needed to in order to be successful. Once I figured out what it took to be successful, it was just as hard work, but it became easy because it was a mindset shift. This is what it takes to be successful. So instead of just, half-assing it and getting it done in this period of time, now it was taking this period of time. Okay. I just managed that into it. I just built that into whatever, and however I was doing business. And, but it's the mindset. It's a numbers game. You got to put the numbers in. Does it matter if you have to bid on 10 things to win one? If that one thing that you bid on is going to make you a multimillionaire? Who wouldn't do that? The deal is you got to put the effort in. You got to do the numbers. It's a numbers game. It's statistics. You give yourself a 10% probability of winning something and you bid X number of times. Well, round up bid number 7, you got a 50-50 chance of becoming a multimillionaire if you're bidding on the right type of contracts. So bid, you write 6 or 7 proposals and you got a coin flip chance of becoming a multimillionaire. Who the hell wouldn't do that? But again, it's got to be the right kind of bids. It's got to be, large enough, and you got to put the quality into it. They got to be real bids. They can't be half-assed bids.
Yeah. Well, I had a deep thought and I'm tiptoeing around it. Not sure if I want to go into it. We have 15 minutes left in this webinar. I'm not sure how many top 10 mistakes we have left in our list of 10. So you just spoke to like following the, well, I know I've heard of what you said by following signal over noise, because there's an awful lot of noise in the world. And I think that ties back into like a fear of public speaking or fear of falling off your bike and everybody making fun of you. It's like a normal, it's a normal thing. Like we
Oh,
are
absolutely.
choosing to get into that arena where it's going to happen. Right. Which,
Yeah.
which I think comes with, another your following point from that previous point that I just referenced was just doing it. Or I'm not sure how you said it, but the grit. That's how I was picturing it.
Well, this is one of the tools that I use and I share with people to help them make the decision to just do it. I call it dreaming with consequences.
Ooh.
You've got to have a dream, and you can't look at this dream as like icing on the cake. It's just like saying like, hey, I got a 9 to 5 job, I'm making okay money, but man, wouldn't it be really nice to launch my own company and become become financially independent and not have money being an issue? And wow, that'd be really nice. You can't have that mentality. You can't have this mentality like saying like, if I don't become a small business owner, it's not like nothing's impacted by that. We're still going to have the same quality of life. You know, uh, that's not the way you look at it. Your dreams are accomplishable. The only thing about it is whether or not you're willing to achieve them. So if the way you got to look at your dreams is you got to say, okay, this dream is this dream is realistic. I can accomplish this. So what if I was to become a small business owner and had lots of prime contracts? Hey, I'd be able to have that beach house. I'd be able to send my kid to those private schools that I think that they would excel in. I'd be able to live in that nicer neighborhood in a nicer house. I'd be able to go on vacations to Hawaii and Europe, and I'd be able to do this, and I'd be able to offer my kids this, and they wouldn't have to worry about tuition, and their kids wouldn't have to worry about tuition, and in fact, I could be able to help them with a down payment on their home, and I'd be able to do this, and I'd be able to get them a nice safe car when they go off to college, and all these different things that success, that dream will accomplish. You got to, that's not icing on the cake. You got to consider that's the reality. You have a choice. You can either give your kids and your family that or not. If you don't pursue that, then what you're doing is you're making a conscious decision not to give your children all of those things. Those are the consequences of that. Now, here I got a question for you. What if your kids were going to a nice private school where they had a lot of great friends and it was like really a great fit for them? They love going to school. Their teachers, the curriculum was out of the box, and they were learning so much information. They were getting so much out of it, and their school really derived a ton of their happiness. And now all of a sudden, you say, son or daughter, I got to take you out of that because, I just never got off my lazy ass to really do it. Or like, I was a little bit too scared that people would make fun of me I was too scared of being embarrassed had I stumbled a few times. So I'm going to pull you out of that school, away from your friends, away from this nice ecosystem that you've been thriving in, that was going to set you up for your future. I'm going to take you out of that. I'm going to send you to this school down the street. That's free. It's okay. It's not bad. It's a good school too, but it's not nearly as good as the one that you were successful in. That is dreaming with consequences. You got to envision the success that is in your grasp. And then, and everything that means. Everybody, if there's any psychiatrists or psychologists, they'd be jumping off the top rope, with their atomic elbow and then telling me how wrong I am with this. But positives, in my opinion, aren't nearly as effective as negatives when it comes to your dreams. And I'm living proof of that. Trying to get in shape, want to be healthier. Now, there aren't too many more positives than not dying. That's pretty damn positive. Like, hey, Randy, unless you get in shape, you're going to die. I
like not dying.
Yeah. Not dying is talking about is as positive as it can be right there. But that's still not enough to get my lazy butt out of bed at 5:30 in the morning to make it to the gym at 6. Having this one little consequence, a negative consequence of having a trainer who's waiting for me at 6 in the morning, and me having to tell him like I can't make it because I'm too lazy to get there because I'm a lard ass, you know, that embarrassment for of me calling him somebody I don't even like barely know, that's enough to get me out of bed when not dying isn't. Now, it's kind of crazy, but you've got to create those tiny little, enablers in order to enable your success. You got to be around the right kind of people. That's probably one of the most effective things about Government Contracting Academy is you realize you're not doing it by yourself. You're with a cohort of people who are helping each other, who are having the same struggles, who are experiencing what you're experiencing. And, we're all in it together. We're all creating synergy. And that's probably the best thing about Government Contracting Academy in reality. The content's nice, the knowledge is nice, all that kind of stuff. My mentoring hopefully is good, but the reality of it is you're not alone. You got a forcing mechanism that's keeping you on track to be successful.
3 years has taken me up 10 years.
Yeah. So that's what I would say is probably, the one of the biggest hurdles about being successful is not believing that you can do it, and then and not having any consequences of not trying. It's just like, I didn't try, no big deal. It was icing on the cake. Nothing gained, nothing lost. No, things are lost. You are not able to give your family, the people you care about, yourself, the opportunities, that you would have been able to had you got off your lazy ass and just did it. I'm not being critical of anybody. I'm just saying though, if you want to be successful, that's the mentality you got to have. Me not doing this actually has consequences. I'm not going to be able to offer my children this. Now then, take it one step further and now pretend that they already have it, and now make the decision to take it away from them. I'll say this: again, this is a little personal, and we're going down a rabbit hole a little bit with this, but this is how personal it is. When I was starting out in business, we were starting to have a little bit of success, and my in-laws, I love my in-laws to death. They are really great people. They had bought a townhouse, in Ocean City. It's a beach house. It's just in a gated community, and they bought that basically for their grandkids. So my children grew up being able to spend the summers, in a beach house. It's like, oh my gosh, and then, they were getting a little bit older and they wanted to do different things. And they say, hey, Randy, we can't afford to, we can't afford to keep this place anymore. Do you want to keep it? Do you want it? Well, we'll sell it to you, and I would have done any and every single thing in my power to buy that. And I did before I could afford it, but we made it work. Why? Because my kids had those experiences already as a gift, basically from their grandparents. And I couldn't take that away from them. I couldn't take away summers at Ocean City from them. So I made it work. So that's, and I'm telling you, we couldn't afford it at the time, but we did. We made it work. Why? Because I couldn't take that away from my kids. So that's how you have to look at dreams. Assume they have it, and then think about, do you really want to take that away from them? And people will do anything at that point once they already have it, not to take something away from their kids. But not giving it to them, hey, somehow or another, we're okay with that. But there's not a bit of difference. Not a bit of difference. They're just more aware that their mommy and daddy didn't cut it, or made the conscious decision to not do the effort in order to give it to them. That, or for whatever reason, you know what I mean? It's like that, then all of a sudden you're in the spotlight. You got to put yourself in the spotlight to be successful. I know this is going down a negative pathway, but if you want to be successful, you got to use the negative tool. The negative tools are more effective than the positive ones. Hey, I can.
That's a cognitive bias, right? Like we're orientated towards that now.
Yeah. For all those reasons why you don't want to be why you don't want to be embarrassed or use that to your advantage. You know what I mean? Like saying like, hey, I don't want to fail. You should be flipping that around and say, I don't want to fail my kids. They're the opinion, they're in your family. That's the only opinion that you should have. So before you hesitate to pick up that phone and ask to be somebody's bid partner and say, hey man, I don't want to fail, and hang up the phone, you need to pick up the phone and say, I don't want to fail my kids. I don't want to fail my family. And that is a worse, I think that's more powerful than saying, I don't want to fail and be embarrassed from in front of some stranger. And you don't want to fail your family. So use those negative things and be as nasty to yourself as you can be, because that's going to encourage you to be successful. Again, that's counterintuitive. That's like be nasty to yourself. I don't think that's going to make it in any Psychology Today article, but I can just tell you what I've seen that works for people. Be nastier to yourself. Say, I had this great opportunity to be successful, to change my family's life, to create generational wealth for my children, my children's children. And you know what I did? I pissed it away because I didn't grab it by the horns and take it on. That's what you have to do. Because if you don't, all these opportunities are going to slide by.
Oh my gosh, that was deep.
I
kicked out of host mode and I started thinking there for a little bit. I gotta get back up to speed here. Holy cow, we are in our last 3 minutes, 3 minutes and 30 seconds. I think we should end it with there's a bunch of deep thoughts going through my mind right now. I think we should end it with a positive thing, which is contradictory to the negative, but on the other side. Well, your point is solid, right? Because humans are optimized towards negativity. Oh my God. We were just talking about how the most popular video on Government Contracting Academy right now is the top 10 things to avoid negative.
Yeah, to avoid negative.
Yeah.
Avoiding negative. We're more, here's the deal. Talking about a deep thought. I used to have a colleague, one of the smartest human beings I ever met. And we used to talk about what truly made happiness. And we came to the conclusion that happiness was not an absence of negativity. It was not. Because that would lead you to going home and sitting in a nice, comfortable, lazy boy chair and watching entertaining sitcoms until you go to bed, get a good night's sleep, wake up, go to your non-exciting, non-negative workplace. Doesn't have to be positive, just can't be negative. And then do the repeat cycle again, where you go back, sit on that chair, watch 6 hours of sitcoms, and then go to bed again. That's a total lack of negativity, but it's not happiness. It's not contentment. In order to be content in your life, you've got to do things that are fulfilling, in my opinion. And things that are fulfilling aren't always they frequently include a little bit of negativity, like a lot of it, like launching a small business. Believe me, there's some negativity that goes along with that. It's called rejection, getting rejected over and over and over. It's like a lot of stress of juggling all these balls up in the air. But there's nothing more fulfilling than walking into a building, walking into your corporate office, knowing that you created this. You created opportunities for every single person there. And your business, it means something. It means quality. That whenever you sign your name on the dotted line, that company is going to deliver. And, and as a federal government contracting company, you are delivering to your country, to your fellow citizens, to national security, to the betterment of, to the free world, and that, professionally speaking, that is the most fulfilling thing I have done by far, is be a small business owner. Nothing has come close to that. Nothing. And was there a whole bunch of negativity associated with that? Absolutely. But it pales in comparison to the fulfillment that I had in knowing that my signature as the CEO and owner of that company meant something. It meant that we were going to deliver. It meant that I was going to give all my employees the best opportunities in the world to achieve, to have a successful career and to have growth, both professional and personal. And I'm telling you that, like I said, that is the most fulfilling thing I've ever done professionally. but it came with some negativity. Came with a lot of lumps. Like I said, I got a few bloody noses and a few bruises to my egos, but that's it. That's really insignificant if you think about it.
This is it. We are at time. I am picturing this like a rocket ship that I don't want to jump off. Like,
okay, so yeah, we're at the hour, but you know what? Let's finish this thing off, like you said, on a
yes, sir.
on a positive note, a really positive note. If you wanted to become, let's say you want to really achieve something meaningful in your life, you can say, I got bucket list. We were talking about bucket list item, and I'm like really caught up with the Olympics. You know, you can become an Olympian. Do you know how few Olympians there are? And you know what that stands for? Like saying, like, I am one of the best, you know, in the world at whatever, you know, that I compete in, and I'm representing my country as my country's best in this event. I'm representing my country and all of my fellow citizens. What a bucket list item that would be able to say that you're an Olympian. But you know what's probably an equally impressive, you know, bucket list item? Is to hike the Appalachian Trail from Maine to Georgia. Think about what you'd see, about what you'd experience along the way, all your adventures, all the different hikers that you'd meet. And let me tell you, those kind of people are the most interesting people in the world. You know, I was involved with Boy Scouts for a while with my children, and we never did the whole Appalachian Trail, but the people that you meet on these trails are really fascinating. And talk about a life event. That is one of those things that you'll never, ever, ever forget if you hike the Appalachian Trail from beginning to end. So both of those are bucket list items, and I would say they're probably comparable. You know what I mean? You know, in value, at least in my mind, you know, the way I value them. One requires that you have superhuman God-given ability. If you want to become a sprinter and you're not in the same caliber physically as Usain Bolt, you're never going to get there. You know, if you want to make the NBA, you know, Team USA basketball team and you're not 7 foot tall, guess what? You're never going to get there. You've got to be born with certain God-given abilities in order to become an Olympian. You either have it or you don't. And let me just say 99.9999999% of us don't. But if you want to have a comparable bucket list achievement to becoming an Olympian, walk the Appalachian Trail. Can you do it? Yeah. You know what it takes? Grit. Just don't stop. Just don't stop walking. Now, how hard is that? Well, it's really effing hard. It really is. It is incredibly hard. But it's doable. You just don't quit. You just keep on walking. Boom, boom, boom. You get tired, you pitch a tent. You wake up, you walk as far as you can, you pitch a tent, you sleep, and you rest. So I consider government contracting, launching a government contracting company, to be like walking the Appalachian Trail. If you've got the grit to see it through, it becomes a numbers game. If you put the numbers in, you are guaranteed to be successful. Anybody can succeed as a federal government contracting entrepreneur if they have the grit to do it, and if they got the courage to take that first step and to see it through. Any and everybody can do it. There's nothing magic about it. There's people out there, to include myself, that can take an 8-year learning curve and reduce it to 8 weeks. So you're not getting lost while you're hiking it. You know, you're actually staying on the trail. You're doing it in a straight line rather than, you know, doing it in spirals. So, you know, you can achieve this. You really can. You know, you need about this much knowledge above and beyond what, you know, most people have, and you need to have grit to see it through. See, there's the positive. Anybody can do it.
That was
you give me a hard time when I'm not positive there, Jonathan. So there's the positive on that.
Worth doing. That's a summation there. Worth doing. Jump on in. Holy cow, we are at time. This was a great episode. Thank you, Randy. This was awesome. Awesome.
No, thank you.
Tons of comments on both sides, all positive reactions. They liked it.
Hey, and also, if you're interested in learning about more mistakes to avoid as a government contracting company. We're going to be hosting a webinar in mid-February, and the details are below. And strongly recommend that you register. It's 100% free. And I go through these mistakes and how to avoid them in pretty significant detail. Because again, why step on the same landmines as somebody else who already has, and he's willing to share their insights? That's the karma thing. If you're not sharing that information with the next group of people behind you, then you're not a good person. So that's what we're trying to do.
Perfect. We're done. That was an awesome episode. Thank you.